In my facility, so I would like one sugar, really will work here.
This meeting is called to order at 8:02. Roll call. Brooke? Mike? Here. We don't have Luke is absent. Cindy is absent. Looks like Ryan is also absent, but he's supposed to be here. I kind of heard.
Yeah. See him on the Zoom yet here, so.
Okay. Bo is present. Are they supposed to say their own names?
They could just say their
Oh,
names.
perfect. What am
That's
I even
fine.
doing?
That's okay.
Well, carry on.
Eric's present.
Steve Chandler's present.
John LaGarza.
Perfect. I move to, oh, no, what do I do next? Move to approve the minutes from the last
Yeah.
meeting?
Ask if there's anyone motion to, any question with the minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Any questions about the minutes from last meeting?
No, we need somebody to move to accept them.
Yep.
What happened next?
Yep.
Okay, so I move to accept the minutes.
I second that. Somebody. Yep.
Yep.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
All those against it? Right on. Anybody here for public comment?
Let's see here. Looks like no one today.
We have enough for a quorum, John.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Okay, do.
This business outreach December event.
Yes, thank you, Chair. One of the things as we're, working on this, building kind of the strategic plan here for Estacada that staff would like to propose to the EDC to talk about and then bring this forward is to do a December business outreach here with the business community to have a panel. Let's get some input, this is our second meeting, but as we're building the strategic plan, it would be good, I think, to get some input from the community on what the business needs are for the community here. So what we're proposing is to talk to the EDC here, like, would this be like a breakfast event, lunch event, or evening event? We wanted to get your thoughts and some input on that from that standpoint there.
So breakfast or lunch event, would the city host that here at City Hall or?
Yeah, we
would it be
could host
private?
it here, and the thought would be to put together a panel around, what are some of the business needs that you think the business community would want to hear from? Insight from there, we could have someone from, like, regarding industrial, we could have someone from downtown. I think that would be a good panel, and invite, we would pick a date and get that out to all the business communities. We'd want them to come in. And basically, we want to hear from the business community because I think it would be valuable as we're shaping this plan and we're looking at, the growth for the next, 5 to 10 years here with our strategic plan. We've talked about workforce from the committee here. I think it's important that we hear what the other items are as we're looking at, like their strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats here, right? So really thinking about that and gathering that information, I think, helps to build the plan that we're looking to move forward from that standpoint. So
I think December may be hard with the holiday. Would the council be approved to, or be have any objections to moving it to January once the holidays
we haven't
pass?
brought it to the council yet, but I
Oh.
think it would be,
Okay.
So I think, just putting it out here for the EDC to talk about here from that standpoint, we need a couple months to plan it. Would a breakfast event be a good event to gauge and get the interest in what you need for the business community, where you're going for Christmas, after Christmas, thoughts around that? I think those are, the council kind of rolls into the reason why December, the council starts their goal setting in January. So they kind of do a 1-day retreat where they go through goal setting. So like, I think one of the values that would come out of that is doing that in December, would really help to, I think we'd have some great takeaways from the business community. One of the council goals was to really get this EDC stood up this year and to start building that connection with the industrial park and the downtown area and the business community, right? So we had the industrial summit, bringing awareness there. We've got the EDC stood up. Now we're working on a strategic plan and identifying that. So like, I think really getting the input from the business community on what are the needs that your business needs going forward over the next 5 to 10 years here. So.
John, in your experience, what's had the best turnout from business owners? Breakfast, lunch, or dinner? Has there?
Dinners seem to be, we're good, because it's, you look at like a business operation, if you go in the morning trying to get up, trying to get going. But we had a great turnout at the Industrial Summit too,
Yeah.
so each community is a little different, Lunch, I think, might be a little harder, for a business operator to come and, you need probably a couple hours. So like, we could always do something, if we wanted to do a breakfast, we could do like 7:30 to 9, or we could do like 5:30 to 8, for dinner. Or we could do lunch. I think you put it out to you. You guys kind of know your business community and how busy you are too, and thoughts from that standpoint there too. So.
Would this include just brick and mortar, or would it also include like maybe perhaps any owners of remote businesses or?
Any owner, or what we would do is we would send out an invitation to all the businesses that we have here, here in Estacada, and we could look at outside, right around the perimeter here, but really inviting them all in. And, if we picked a date in December, we could get the invitation out here in the next couple of weeks, and then we would know by mid-November how many business owners. And I think you could probably get off, 50 to 70 people to participate. So really get a good input from your community here. So.
I'm more of a dinner person when it comes to business meetings. Just
That's been my experience in like in the events that we've had, like Clackamas County city or Clackamas City dinners have seemed to have more of a turnout than anything that's ever happened during the day. And that's been my experience. I just didn't know if that was the same for everyone else. Might have better shot at getting business owners that have crazy busy days to show up in the evening time after business hours. But I'm open to coming to any time. So, but I just want to see the biggest turnout possible. Yeah.
Anybody have any ideas in December or January, but December preferred as far as dates, what day of the week? Or if there's any more successful day than others, whether it be Friday or beginning of the week?
Can I ask about, when you say having a panel,
Yes,
like what does that mean? What are you envisioning?
I think like having a panel would be helpful to have around business individuals that to show like what are some of the resources available as the city's growing from that standpoint, right? So really, I think, for example, like someone from Business Oregon would be important to have here, right? So we're talking about, industrial growth. So what industrial resources are out there for manufacturing through the Business Oregon program? So for example, Business Oregon industrial bonds, right? But how many business owners in manufacturing know that's available for their growth of their business, right? So I think thinking about those type of panels, what are some of the advocates for or opportunities around downtown? I think that's important to look at someone from that standpoint, like what are some of the resources available to help businesses growing. And that could be like small business administration, or it could be other programs maybe that the city has around urban renewal opportunities, right? So I think a panel, maybe someone from the state would be important from a state legislator standpoint, like so to hear what the business needs are and what the business wants going forward from that standpoint too. I think that's important there too. So panel, I could come up with a list of 4 or 5, maybe 5 to 10, and then propose it to the EDC and we could talk through that. And I'm welcome to thoughts on that too.
And then would they come prepared to speak on certain topics, or would it be just kind of waiting for the you know, the public to ask questions.
What I've done in the past is, I have them come talk about a couple of their topics, but then engage we want to hear from the business owners. So for example, like, what are your needs, right? You're in downtown here, you're in broadband. What are the needs that there's a lot of broadband funding out there right now. What's happening with the broadband funding? I don't know where you're at with that, right? But with your business, but like, that's important to hear. Like, do we need, more funding for broadband to get to certain areas within our community, right? So I think we want to open it up to what businesses want, but we also want to say, okay, here's some, opportunities or programs out there. Later in this agenda, we talked about there's an item in there for the Clackamas County grant that's open right now, right? So it's up to $100,000 grant that's available, right? So I mean, those are opportunities within the community that we need to bring awareness to help businesses be more successful here. So
So it would be more like us asking questions of that panel.
I think it would be both, right? So I think what I've found in the past is we need a little bit of having them talk, but then also like having you folks could be help getting the business audience engaged and starting the conversation, right? So I think that's very helpful from that standpoint there too.
How does that work in maybe a city that's bigger? Is there somebody on staff at the city that becomes aware of those programs and then goes and interacts with business owners to say, hey, can we help you get into this, or be a liaison that way? This sounds like we're trying to kind of dig it up, learn about it, share it out.
Right.
Become the educated on it, to go present that. As opposed to having a business development person that's part of the city that's aware of those programs and then comes and meets with us and says, hey, did you know about this? Can I help you do this? So it's kind of like trying to take the place of a person on staff on the city that would do that? Or we're trying to play that role that a business development person in a city would usually do?
Because because Estacada is growing, I think it's, you're trying to, one person going to each of several meetings, right? So I think you're trying to, get the word out that these programs are available as the city grows, right? From that standpoint, right? So I think it's probably a step in between there. Does that make sense?
So in the past, it'd be like a Randy Ely, a Matt Lorenzen.
Right.
Depending on the city manager, that's how some of that would happen. So now I'm just trying to make sure, who does what, like are we taking on a certain role that used to be done in a different way?
No, the city's never really done a business outreach like a event here, so like Matt focused a lot on the downtown, but I think one of the things is, connecting and getting the industrial manufacturer, the downtown association has done a good job of business outreach, but I think it's you as the EDC, you're looking to build a strategic plan, right? So I look at it as, this is valuable information to have in your plan, right? And as you're shaping this plan, we want to hear the business community's needs. So what are for example, we talked around, I'll go back to workforce housing, right? And that's a kind of like I would say when we're looking at the SWOT analysis for our plan, that is really like thinking about could be a potential threat, right? So like, how do you have workforce housing for manufacturing or, those kind of considerations, right? So that's the input we want to hear from the business community, right? So, is it challenging to get through a permit process or not? Or is that a strength that we have that we need to recognize within our strategic plan, is that you can come in here and you can get a building permit and be ready to go in, 60 days. Well, that's a strength that we want to make sure that the community, not only in Estacada, but outside Estacada, is aware of that, right? And our business owners, because that's our best advocates for us at the end of the day too, right? So if like, hey, I can come into the business park and get my permit and be ready to go in 2 months, if you're talking to someone, that's a strong selling point, better than any city employee could do from that standpoint there, so.
Elena is another good person too. She gets a lot of notifications about opportunities for different funding sources. And I think
Yeah.
just having a brief conversation with her, letting her know to keep it on our radar when opportunities come up for businesses, that she can forward that information over to the Economic Development Committee. And then we can look at those grant programs and see if that's something that we want to put out to the businesses and just make people aware of it. A lot of people just aren't aware of the programs. Like when we went into the park, we weren't aware of the enterprise zone until someone from the city actually brought it up to us and mentioned it to us. And it happened to be timing just right where we hadn't submitted for permits yet, where we were able to do the application. But another person that we built for down on Veterans wasn't aware of it at all and weren't able to take advantage of that program. And they could have saved a large amount of money. So I think just having that information available for people and letting them know right when they come in the door, if they're in an area where it's an enterprise zone, that they don't miss out on those opportunities, because that's someplace where we can really support new companies that are coming in or businesses that are expanding. Let them know that if they add 10% to their workforce, a lot of smaller companies that only have 10 employees, you have to add one position, but sometimes that abatement of the taxes for the improvements can pay for that position for those 3 years, and they can take advantage of that. So just making people aware of all the opportunities, I think would be good. Start getting that information in.
Yeah.
Someplace where that would be one thing. I think resources for businesses would be something the Economic Development Committee could work on putting together as well. I think it would be a good thing. Just where if you're coming in as a new business and you can just have one location that has all the resources, opportunities for funding, abatement, stuff like that, anything that would benefit the company for coming into Estacada, having that in one location and not having to go to a bunch of different pages, I think that'd be a really neat thing to have. Would be helpful.
I just have trouble understanding where the labor comes from to go and do that and research that, put that together. Are we saying, from us as part of the plan, that we say that's something we want to have? And so since we identified as something that we have, that then comes help from the city. staff
Correct.
Or from,
Yeah.
Yes.
I would,
The city staff will help. We're not going to be putting it together,
I'll
the
organize
webpage
it
or
all.
anything like that, but if we can get the information that we want on there and let them know what we want on the webpage, then the city can help facilitate getting it on the webpage, is my understanding.
that's correct. Yeah. So I was, so like I was looking at like December, I'll put out some Thursdays. I found Thursdays work pretty good for the business community, I don't know how you guys feel about like December 12th, 19th, I'm just putting out some dates to.
I can make any, I mean, that far out, I can make anything work. We'll travel out of town for Christmas or anything, so.
Yeah, we can just pick the Thursday, I don't have my calendar up. Thursday, the 12th, was it?
Yes.
We just tentatively pick Thursday, the 12th and see if there's any major conflicts. I think a good resource too, popped in my head, was as far as dispersing information about the meeting. Would be the Estacada area Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think she'd be a great resource as far as just getting information out there, because all of her contacts lists are just sheer business owners. So
Yeah.
I could reach out to her and see if there's a possibility of her spreading some information for us and maybe put together a flyer.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could put
Mailers with a
together
list of
the,
business licenses, get the list of all the businesses that have business licenses registered with City of Escada too as well.
Oh, yeah.
And see cross-reference, make sure, because she's probably gonna have a lot of people that are outside of town that don't need a city business license,
Mhm.
that are in the peripherals.
Yeah.
And then, but that, anyone that has a business license, we should be able to get that list pretty
Yeah.
easily and send out mailing. to all
Okay.
those.
and we can work with them and put the flyer together and do that. Yeah. Do that
Okay.
connection there. Sure.
Well, then set the 12th of December.
So
12th
we'll
of
go,
December.
we'll tentatively put it for December 12th there then. Awesome.
I will be absent. I won't be able to make that. So.
All right. Any last touching points on the outreach December event? Perfect.
What time were we thinking?
How does like 5:30 for like open, we could have like hors d'oeuvres open up from 5:30 to like 6 and then start around 6.
And check the city web. Well, I don't know if they're public meetings or, I was just wondering if we were scheduling
Any,
it during the time of a committee meeting or anything.
Okay.
We'll want to double check that, just
I'll
make sure there's not
double check
another
with,
committee that's having meetings.
I'll check with Melanie today and then I'll email everyone and let you guys know if that looks like a
Yeah.
date there. That's good there from that
Yeah.
standpoint. So,
Well, you said 5:30 to 8?
yeah, 5:30 to 8.
We can get it on the reader board out here. Notifications on the reader board and then get the flyers and then get it posted on the website. Is there any other places where it would be good to get information out to get the highest participation, maybe
Reader
social media?
board, we'll do, we'll send out the postcard invite. We'll do the flyer. Those have been really good successful outreaches that I've seen in other communities.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know you were saying, John, that you wanted to compile a list of 4 or 5 kind of talking points or questions for that board. Just send that to us prior that we can have it for next meeting and kind
Yeah,
of go
and
over
I
it.
think if you know, as the business owners here in the, if you see or some ideas or thoughts of folks that you think would, that you hear, please, email me too, because I think that's important to think about who's on that panel and, and the support we can give our business community from that standpoint there. So.
Well, I think that segues us right into the Clackamas County Economic Indicators.
Did everyone get a chance? I just put that in. I'm going to start putting that in the packet. I don't know if it showed up. Is it in your packet there? Did you see it there? Didn't make it. So really just in your packet each time, I'm going to start putting the unemployment indicators in there for Clackamas County so you can see which trades are in there. Sorry, it's not in there this time, but I'll email it all out to you there. So it'll be something that will just constantly as we move forward, you can see what the, in Clackamas County, where we're seeing growth, where we're not seeing growth, around the unemployment on that standpoint there too. So.
Great. Then we start working into the strategic plan. Oh, go ahead.
Right. So I think last time we had some great, conversation and, just talking to Eric and Bo a little bit before here. I think as we're looking at the strategic plan, I think, just talking about like what areas I think to kind of maybe start some takeaway for the, you as the members to think about, I think would be good conversation to have today. So I think one of the things, just would be looking around like, maybe a couple members take strengths, maybe someone takes, weaknesses, someone does opportunities and someone brings threats, right? So, and that could be a way to come back and report in November and talk about with the committee. We also got to think about like, what's, the vision and the mission here for the economic development strategy, right? So I think that could be some good conversation to have today around your, your vision and mission here. And then maybe assign going out, some responsibilities for looking and doing your SWOT analysis, right? So just going to put that out there for the committee to talk about today.
Okay. And one of my points for the strategic plan, one of my duties was underutilized property. And I found it incredibly hard to, it's easy to drive around town and identify underutilized property or misused property. And I found it incredibly hard to really reach out to the landowners or the property owners. And I don't have, for lack of better terms, what's my bargaining chip as far as, hey, let's take your property and let's transform it into this to help the city, or let's transform it into that to help the city. And what do you get in return? Yeah, we can say there's going to be an increase in traffic. There's going to be an increase in population that's going to bring more money to you. But for your initial investment of kind of revamping your property, what's my bargaining chip to come at them with? So I found it really hard to reach out to all these individuals and not just start the conversation, but how do I close the conversation? So I didn't really make any headway as far as property goes on the strategic plan. I was kind of disappointed. I was really eager to get going on that, and yeah, there's no real good footholds. Unless anyone else has any ideas.
If it's within the downtown zone, there's opportunities, kind of the carrot would be matching funds from like applying for urban renewal grant funding for improvements. If the improvements they're doing is going to improve the tax value of the lot is one of the conditions, or that there's the potential for that to happen in the future. That's one of the biggest ones in the downtown zone. Outside of the downtown zone, improvements, I'm not aware of many.
Yeah, I think where you're, I think, but where you're probably the input that I think, would be that I think what you're looking at is opportunities of the SWOT analysis, right? So I think to what Councilor McClory said is, I think the opportunity for us to Kate on the underutilized could be within the strategic plan. We have some underutilized properties in the downtown area, and also in our industrial areas, right? So what are some of the opportunities? And from that, like, to what Councilor McCrory said would be identifying some opportunities to help those properties transform. So urban renewal is a good tool to help that for business and economic development. I think outside, when we look at the corridor coming into Estacada, what are some of those opportunities and programs that we could help to transform those areas, right? So that I would look at like saying, like, maybe you take in the SWOT analysis, you're going to maybe you and someone else you're going to look at what are some opportunities around that, right? Instead of, and then not reaching the individual property owners each, but just identifying and thinking of some of those programs that can come within that, right? So like we're starting there, and then it would be, identifying down from there what those properties are in those areas, right? For example, we know, the mill site's an example and is in downtown in this area of Estacada, right? There's an opportunity to reposition that, but how would you go doing about that, right? And finding those funds. But I think first off is just what are some of the opportunities around land, other things, within Estacada that we have, right? So
Mill site comes up periodically. Does anybody happen to know like the current status of the mill site? Like, is it under certain ownership, or is somebody trying to purchase it, or are they open to that? Because
It's under contract.
It's under contract with who?
Steve.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, because as you go and like research stuff like that, you'll see stories and you'll see like, hey, this is there, but it's not like the owner is not like motivated to sell. Has been where that's at. So that if somebody's like, this doesn't need to sell it, then what's the purpose?
Yeah.
So if you're chasing something that somebody doesn't want to sell, that's not kind of falling out there. Okay.
does that help with
Yeah, I
Okay.
got the cart before the horse.
That's okay. That's
go
the
straight to
figure.
the
No,
horse's
no,
mouth.
no. I think that's, because then I think once you have your strategic plan, business owners can see where you're going. You can see you've identified the funding and opportunities. I think the mill site is something that's, we see this in a lot of cities that we work with, abandoned mill sites, and how it's a great connection piece within the community. So how do we move that forward, right? It could be a great opportunity. I know the city, Matt and city went back and had done some rezoning on it years ago, right? So I think like, how do we move that forward in the best way possible for our community is a great investment, right? I think looking at, the corridor coming into Estacada, right? And that industrial area, right? So there's large pieces of land there could be great sites for future grocery store areas, right? So thinking about some of those things, I think, would be helpful from that standpoint there to identify right in your plan.
That's gonna be starting getting master planned probably in the following year. The master plan for that whole 91 acres. As far as street layouts, lot layouts, stuff like that, the flow of traffic and everything like that.
It'd just be interesting to learn through that process. You say there was rezoning and that, different stuff like that. When we see these things, that's somewhere that momentum got going to actually bring some change about. So as we look at, long-term, what we want to see happening is kind of understand how to get those balls rolling on some of these things, knowing that it's not a tomorrow thing. It might be a 10 years from now thing, but at least know how to get that started.
Yeah, and I think, for example, like really looking at your urban renewal, could be a great opportunity to think about how you help fund some of that in the future, right? Because you're gonna need funding, as a mill site, it's gonna have cleanup, you're gonna have to get infrastructure in there, so those are gonna be important things. So how do you work through with that to help fund those areas for as a city, right? So.
A little bummed that Ryan wasn't here today because I would have liked to speak to them about the education and workforce partnerships, but is there anyone else in here that was working on education and workforce? No. Anybody else have anything they want to add to the strategic plan for the EDC, anything they came up with in the last months, since the last time we met? Very good. You have anything you want to add to the strategic plan?
I just,
John?
if there's any thoughts around, I think your vision, as for the strategic plan, that could be some good conversation. What's the mission of the strategic plan, right? So I think that, maybe you guys want to talk a little bit about that, because I think that could be something we could at least start drafting that and have that, we can always fine tune. It's going to take a couple months, like we're going through building this, but like, is the mission to be able to look at, we're thinking as a 5-year plan, right? So, the vision is to build a 5-year plan for all business, support, I'm just putting out some ideas for you guys to think about that. And then, what's the mission of it, is maybe to be able to provide, opportunities to help fund it. I'm just giving you putting out some, it's your guys' vision and mission, right? But I'm just giving you some ideas and suggestions around that, so.
I think it needs to identify where we need to make improvements and what needs to be done. And then identify the plan for executing to fill those holes that are needed. And then a way to measure the outcomes of those things is what I would
like
say.
that
They're kind of
with
the three
the
components.
measuring, I think that's really good, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Anyone have anything to brainstorm right off the top as far as their vision? Taking everything into account that we've talked about the last 2 meetings. And just the general idea of bringing more commerce to the city, whether it's bringing more business or making the businesses more efficient here, hiring within the city instead of outsourcing labor.
I think this might be a little off topic, but just something I've noticed is a lot of people are complaining about the growth. And I think it's important that we understand how to manage that growth a little bit better. Again, this is what this whole purpose is, right? To develop a strategic plan for this. So manage growth, looking at ways to cater to everyone at the same time, which is gonna, it's literally impossible. But overall, our desire is to grow Estacada into, a well-known city within the state of Oregon, perhaps further out other regions, and attract more businesses. Yeah, I don't even know where I'm going with that.
I think that's a good point. And when we define on page 7, it says vision and mission, definition of the desired future state for economic development in Estacada. I think when we talk about growth, a definition of what is good growth. Good growth is not just being big for numbers or developing it out as far as possible, different things, like being on the same page with the community about what is their definition of healthy growth? Is it a good community to be able to stay in? Is it being financially solid in that community? Is it feeling safe in that community? What is it? Because that's what's going to get them behind it, is to talk about the future state of growth that everybody can get behind. Because everybody individually will have different things that they like, and then, of course, something that I like is gonna be something that Bo doesn't have necessarily interest in, but if we can get around something that kind of touches many people's, desires at the same time, I think that's what will get them moving behind it.
One of the things whenever growth comes up to the city council is, a lot of people are uninformed about the city's ability to manage the growth. If you have a property and all your utilities can support the development of a property and it's been annexed into the city and it's zoned a certain way, it's not an option for the planning department to say no. So if it's set for multifamily housing and they apply for multifamily housing permit on that property, it's not, and the utilities can support that being developed there. It's not in the city's purview. The city can't manage that. It's the market that's going to manage it. So educating people has been a big thing, is like people say, well, why don't you just say no? Well, you can't tell someone what they can and can't do on property that they purchased. They paid money for, it's zoned appropriately. If they're doing something, if it's something that's a special use or conditional use, there might be open to that. But if it's an outright use on that property, there's no opportunity for the city to say no. And that's what we run into a lot, is people say, well, why are you letting these apartments go in over here? Well, the code allowed for it at the time, the way it was written. We didn't necessarily agree with the location of it, that it fit that area, but the way the code was written when they were submitting for the application is it's an allowed use there. And so it's not in the city council's power to say no to that. So I think letting people know that the growth is inevitable. There's not a single town around here that's not growing. Populations is going to come out from the metro area. So what does that look like when it does come? And I think the way you mentioned it, Eric, is really important. Like what's important to you when the growth happens, because it is going to happen. What would you like to see happen during that growth is more realistic than that we're going to control the amount of growth that happens out here. We have the most buildable land inventory within our UGB of any area in the metro. So when the residential site starts booming again, it's going to boom out here. They're already pushing dirt out up on Deuce for one of the approved subdivisions. I've seen them moving that around. So as the rates come down, you're going to see an explosion, and we have the largest buildable land inventory. It's coming out here. And so just casting a vision for what we want to see happen when it does is really important. Yeah.
I think with that, there's elephants in the room, so, and we have to call those out in that plan. So, I mean, in all honesty, I totally hear what you're saying as far as the way it's zoned and people buy it, they need to be able to do it, but I think what people would also come back and say, well, the same government that now says that people have to be allowed to do what it was zoned to do, the same government somehow prior to that approved that plan that made that to what now we roll into. And so when we talk about them being able to develop properties, because that's what it's already zoned for, I think people will call out and say, well, you're ignoring the fact that now you're saying you have to follow the plan and let them do that. But you're also, as a government, part and parcel to the creation of the plan, which you now say you're obligated to follow. So when we don't acknowledge what stinks to people, we have a miss to where we can say all we want, but we have to find out, what it is that's really problematic and acknowledge that.
I think one of the biggest problems for a lot of people I talk to, I mean, I love the growth. If you're not growing, you're dying, right? It's the sprawl, which obviously, like you mentioned, there's just so much land inventory available here. I think a lot of people would like to see some in-growth within the city, right? Utilizing those vacant lots within downtown, building multi-use residential units with stores in the bottom. Again, we can't really have a lot of demand with like stores locally and show cause for, hey, we need a antique store, we need this or that, without those, persons, residents here. So I think a lot of people are under just this delusion that they can complain and it'll fix it. But I think, again, education, you voted for the government back then when they approved this. You could have gone into the city council and objected, but you didn't. So live with it and let's move on. Let's grow. Let's become a city. Let's manage this growth. Let's just be much better. So it's not much you can do except for just explain and inform. But yeah, That's what I keep doing. I keep telling them like, hey, growth is good.
So I guess a good vision then is knowing that growth is a relative term and we have to grow at a sustainable rate that kind of accommodates what we foresee in the next 10 years. I mean, that's really the definition of what we're supposed to do. So I think maybe we could identify some key factors there as far as, just general, okay, we expect 10,000 more people in the next 10 years. What's that going to look like as far as medical, traffic, utilities? Where are they going to go? How are we going to get them there? And how can we help make it happen? I don't know. Talking outside the box.
That's good conversation. I have enough. I'll go back through and listen to all your comments and I'll draft a couple, visions and mission and share it out and you guys can give feedback on that for, yeah, and I also like the suggestions, looking at some metrics as we go. I think that's real important, for that. And I do think to your point of, really communicating that out to the community, right? So that could be a good goal for the EDC to help build that communication strategy there too, so.
Well, and I think if we have the infrastructure to support the growth, whatever that might be, that maybe that growth won't be so negatively received by the public.
That's a great point, because even challenges in having to develop to accommodate this, the messaging that comes from even the city, or the charges or the bonds and things like that, those live in opposition to the idea of growth. So you have to figure out how you message that you're actually keeping up with this in a legitimate way, rather than it sounding like an overwhelmed and underfunded and not planned way. Because that's where people say, well, we can't do this because you didn't do this. So you have to, your messaging has to cover it has to acknowledge what people are gonna obviously think about in their own head when they see these things in conflict with each other.
Yeah, I like where you're going, because that could be one of the, after you do your SWOT, within the goals and priorities could be really around infrastructure, really having a clear messaging plan and showing how you're going to get water or power or broadband to these areas, right? And what is that, as you grow? What are the plans? We know how the residential go, but these other areas of town are very important, whether it's industrial park or downtown or the mill site, right? So how are you going to get that infrastructure in those areas, and what's the timing and planning and, to really get that out to your community ahead of time, right? I think that's a really good goal and priority of how you message that infrastructure is so important.
And how you are, in a sense, having the growth pay for itself. It's not
Yep.
on the back of the people that have been here for years. I think that's the feeling keeps, the opposition to growth. So just getting out there in front of it and putting the plan out there so that you can share it.
Great points. Anybody have anything else to add? You want to move right into the OMHT, John?
Yep, thank you, Chair. We put this up here for the EDC to know that staff's working on a grant here. We're going to apply for this tourism grant here to be able to look at bringing some additional funds to try and help market tourism. Probably apply for around $100,000 grant here to the tourism to be able to really look at promoting, like you kind of have the shoulder off seasons out here. So really to help promote the Clackamas corridor around the river area, be able to promote, we've talked about kind of in the fall, you have the mushroom festival, you also have the beaver fling. So kind of looking at how we could get some dollars potentially from the Mount Hood tourism territory to be able to get more awareness out in the community about the Clackamas corridor and to bring more tourists into the downtown here. So.
Is that Office of Economic Development grant kind of the piggyback on that?
Yeah, the next one, is I was gonna have Cindy speak a little bit about this, but I'll talk about it today. So there's a NOFA notice of funding opportunity that's open at the Clackamas County Office of Economic Development. I put this in here. Again, it's for trader sectors. The grant's up to $100,000 there. It talks about all different types of opportunities what this grant could be utilized for. It closes at the end of October. So again, we're just pushing this out to the business communities to make sure that if there's, if you know a business or see a business that meets these requirements, please pass this on or and get the awareness out to them from that standpoint there too.
Is it, you said October 9th or the end of the month?
End of October.
Application closes 5 PM Pacific time? Oh, this is something different. Page 8 out of 10, is that the right?
Are you on the tourism grant or are you on the tourism grant?
Grant timeline for, I don't. Yeah, this must be something else, I guess.
The Clackamas County Tourism Strategic Investment Program.
Yeah, that one, they've extended it one more week. So
Oh, okay.
yeah. They extended after we posted the agenda, but the next one you can see is the notice of funding opportunity, the NOFA from the Clackamas County Office of Economic Development there.
Right.
Yeah, I got it.
To circle back around, I know Luke was pretty passionate about tourism, seeing that he was the Clackamas River Outfitters, and he was kind of heading that as far as kind of some planning on the strategic plan. Does anyone else thought about tourism at all as far as bringing tourism or keeping tourism or anything in regards to the city here?
Well, we just had that Oktoberfest. Was it last weekend? Don't recall. That was, my kids enjoyed it. It was a great time. I saw a lot of people, brought a lot of people in. It wasn't as big as you would expect for an Oktoberfest, but it was something better than nothing, right? I guess, also other ways, we had talked about this last time, little logos, things to get people interested in Estacada. But again, that's something I was working on, just kind of suggestions and stuff like that. But again, you were talking about Luke and his company. There's another couple companies I've seen around here that are into like off-roading, stuff like that, that I'd like to reach out to.
Okay.
And I'll do that this next 30 days. I think that brings in a lot of people as well.
Yeah.
Outdoor activities.
Anything else in the grants?
There's a lot of fishing that happens out here as well too. A lot of people come out here to go fishing, going up the river to go fishing too, something. Haven't really seen anything geared towards any events for fishing events or anything like that, something to capture some of those people as they come out.
There's a bait and tackles store there at the end of town.
Yeah.
Are they open?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've never been in there, so I wasn't sure. There was a lot of fish. I didn't know if we could somehow find a bait and tackle store out here.
Yeah, no, yeah, we got the one right over there over across the highway. I believe, last time I was over there, it was open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, any commissioner comments? Any final comments from anybody? All right, this meeting is adjourned at 8:50.
Right.
Oh, do we want to talk about next meeting agenda items?
Sure.
Sorry, I skipped over that one. Sorry, John.
Okay. I think, like if we signed, someone that you could do, someone first, at least we could get the SWAT started. If the members could come back and have some, maybe you could assign, hey, I'm going to do strengths, you're going to do, maybe you're doing opportunities, maybe Stefan's, Steve, you're doing, strengths, and maybe Eric, you're doing threats, and I'm just, putting out, maybe you're going to do weaknesses, so maybe that could be a way for y'all to, and then reach out to, we got Ryan and Luke and Cindy absent, but we could share, that's something to come back and talk about what we see from, and then we have a good conversation around the SWOT analysis here for the next meeting. We want to have the meetings, we've been trying to do them every second Wednesday of the month at 8 a.m. So I know Eric's not going to be here next month. You might not be here. Oh, so someone else we got Cindy or someone lead the meeting. From that standpoint, hopefully get Ryan and Luke here, so we'll have a quorum. But that's what, so everyone can get that on their calendars ahead of time, so it's a standing meeting, so it's just every second Wednesday of the month at 8 a.m. So from that standpoint there too, so.
Yeah, as far as SWAT, I think the longer those members here in this committee that's been in SDK the longest would know more of the strengths and the threats versus somebody like me who's very new. I'm more of an optimistic. I can see opportunities with the city and maybe weaknesses. So I would be more
You want
suitable.
opportunity then?
I think that's also maybe weaknesses.
Weaknesses. Okay. Cindy, what would you like? Would you like strength, opportunity or threat?
Well, I'm good with whatever.
Give it whatever. How about
But
this?
are we looking at these for, all of the various groups, or topics that we've been discussing?
I think it's just general estacada in, as
I
a
would-
whole.
As a whole for the business community, yes.
Okay.
Yep. Mhm.
Okay, I wasn't sure if this was like,
Because you might say, hey, we have a really strong industrial park. We can continue to leverage and grow on that. But maybe a threat is we need to get more infrastructure put out there, right? So I mean, yeah, I think we're doing a SWOT analysis for the city and you gotta be looking at that, you're kind of at a higher lens. We're not down into the details of exactly in each area, right? But I think that's the main thing, thinking of that. And then what are some goals and priorities as you build that over the next 5 years? So.
All right.
well, I'm happy to take on any of them. So
Okay.
I don't feel very.
Eris, do you have a specific one you'd like?
What are you on?
I'm doing opportunities,
Opportunities.
but we can go
Threats?
through.
Yeah, sometimes differences between weaknesses and threats are kind of odd, but yeah, we'll go through that.
Okay. I'll put you on both as I tie together. How about, how about strength then?
Perfect.
Perfect.
Give the people that didn't show up the worst ones.
Yeah.
I actually, I tried to reach out with Cindy and talk with her previously before the meeting last week, but she said she'd connect with me afterwards to go over some of our agenda items. So
So, Bo, you want to go over who you assigned to who here?
Yeah, so for strength, I got Cindy down. For weakness, I put
I
Steven.
mean, Brooke.
Oh, Brooke, sorry.
I knew.
I've been calling
I-
you Brooke all day, and then I hit Cindy. I got Brooke down, wrote down Cindy. And then for weakness, I got Steven and Eric, gonna both tying on it. And then opportunity is myself, and then threats is also Eric. And then
We got Luke and Ryan.
we got Luke and Ryan and Cindy. I feel like Cindy would be very good at strengths,
yeah,
so I'll put her down. Weaknesses. We'll put Ryan on weakness. And then we can maybe put Luke on opportunity. He's pretty optimistic.
Awesome.
All right, now is there any last items? Let's talk about. Perfect. We'll adjourn at 8:55.